The slap echoed louder than the siren outside. It was sharp, cruel, and unnecessary, cutting through the stale air of the police station like a gunshot. The homeless man staggered sideways, his thin body folding inward as if he had already learned to expect pain. What no one noticed in that moment was the biker standing near the entrance, helmet still in his hand, leather jacket worn thin with age, eyes frozen wide open. In that single second, something inside him snapped. Something old and buried rose to the surface, and the entire station was about to witness a reaction no one would ever forget. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for the powerless, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel for more real emotional stories like this. The biker had not planned to be there. He had ridden into town under heavy clouds, rain clinging to his jacket, his motorcycle coughing like an old friend that refused to quit. He was a man shaped by roads and regrets, the kind of person people judged before he ever spoke. To the officers behind the desk, he was just another rough-looking outsider. To the homeless man sitting on the cold metal bench, he was just another stranger who would look away. But the biker's past was heavier than his appearance suggested, and the scene unfolding before him reached straight into wounds he had never allowed to heal. The homeless man looked older than his years, his face lined by hunger, and nights spent curled against concrete walls. His clothes were soaked from the rain, clinging to his frail frame, his hands trembling not from cold alone but from fear. He had been picked up for loitering, a word that sounded harmless until it became an excuse to humiliate. The officer who slapped him wore authority like armor, convinced that power made him untouchable. Other officers stood nearby, silent, eyes shifting away, pretending not to see. Silence had a sound of its own, and it was just as loud as the slap. The biker felt his chest tighten. Memories surged without permission. Years ago, he had been on the other side of a badge, young and proud, believing rules mattered more than people. Back then, he had watched as a man like this homeless soul was dragged into a cell, mocked and forgotten. He had said nothing then. That silence had cost him everything. It had cost him his job, his marriage, and his ability to sleep without seeing that man's eyes. He had traded a uniform for a bike, a structured life for endless roads, hoping distance could drown guilt. It never did. Inside the station, time seemed to slow. The homeless man tried to straighten himself, dignity clinging by a thread, while the officer sneered, convinced no one would challenge him. The biker's boots felt heavy as he took a step forward. Every instinct warned him of consequences. He was one man in a room full of law enforcement, and he looked exactly like the kind of person they enjoyed pushing around. His hands trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of a decision he had avoided for years. The station smelled of disinfectant and damp paper. The walls were plastered with posters about justice and community, slogans that felt like cruel jokes in that moment. The biker's heart pounded louder with each step. He remembered the night he had walked away instead of intervening, the night that ended his career and began his exile. He remembered promising himself that if he ever saw it again, he would not stay silent. Promises made in pain are easy to forget until life forces you to keep them. The officer raised his hand again, not to strike but to point, to belittle, to remind the homeless man of his place. That was when the biker finally moved fully into the room. His presence alone shifted the air. Conversations stopped. Chairs creaked as officers turned. Leather jackets carried their own reputation, and his scars only deepened it. But there was something in his eyes that didn't match the stereotype. Something raw and resolute. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He simply stood between the officer and the homeless man, his body forming a barrier, his silence louder than any words. For a moment, no one knew how to react. The officer's authority faltered, confusion flickering across his face. No one was supposed to stand up like this, especially not someone who looked like trouble. The biker's jaw clenched as he felt the old fear return, but he stayed where he was, grounded by the simple truth that some lines should never be crossed. The homeless man looked up, disbelief etched into his face. No one had ever stepped in for him before. He was used to being invisible, used to pain delivered casually. The biker glanced back just once, offering nothing more than presence, but that was enough. That small act of humanity began to crack something open in the room. The situation escalated quickly. Voices rose. Other officers stepped forward, hands hovering near belts, unsure whether this biker was a threat or a conscience they didn't want to face. The biker knew he could be arrested, beaten, or worse, but he also knew that walking away would destroy him in a way nothing else could. The weight he had carried for years finally had somewhere to go. An older officer, gray-haired and tired-eyed, finally intervened. He had seen too much to pretend this was nothing. He ordered the room to calm down, his voice carrying authority without cruelty. The officer who had slapped the homeless man bristled but backed away, anger simmering beneath embarrassment. The biker did not move until he saw the homeless man helped back onto the bench, a blanket finally placed around his shoulders. The aftermath was messy and uncomfortable. Reports were demanded. Names were taken. The biker was questioned, suspicion heavy in every glance. Yet something had shifted. The slap could no longer be ignored. The silence that once protected abuse had been broken, and broken things cannot easily be put back together. As hours passed, the truth emerged piece by piece. The homeless man was not a criminal. He was a veteran who had slipped through every crack after losing his family and his home. His record was clean. The charge that brought him in was flimsy at best. The biker listened quietly as details surfaced, each one a reminder of how easily society discards its most vulnerable. The officer who had struck him was suspended pending investigation. It wasn't justice yet, but it was accountability, and that alone felt revolutionary. The older officer approached the biker later, not with hostility, but with something like respect. He recognized the look in the biker's eyes, the look of someone who had paid dearly for doing the wrong thing once and refused to repeat it. When the homeless man was finally released, the rain had stopped. The world outside smelled clean, like a second chance. The biker walked with him to the steps, offering his jacket against the chill. No speeches were made, no heroic poses struck. Just two men standing together, connected by a moment that neither would forget. The biker rode away later that night, the hum of his motorcycle steady beneath him. For the first time in years, the road felt different, lighter. He knew one act could not erase his past, but it could shape his future. Somewhere behind him, a homeless man slept with a little less fear. Somewhere inside him, a long-standing debt had finally begun to be paid. Stories like this matter because they remind us that courage does not always roar. Sometimes it simply refuses to stay silent. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the power one person has to stand up for another, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that matter. Before we end, we have a special request for you. Comment below and tell us what you would have done in the biker's place, or share a moment when you stood up for someone who couldn't defend themselves. The biker never became famous. The station returned to its routines, but that night lingered in the lives it touched, a quiet reminder that humanity can still show up in unexpected places. And sometimes, all it takes to change everything is one person willing to step forward when everyone else looks away.